Hey, welcome to Optimize Your Body with Martin Silva, where we talk raw, uncut facts to truly help you optimize your body.
Optimize your body. Andrew Bond is back. He's back with a vengeance. He's got his beard and his hat on, looking like a bit of a... He's looking dodgy, to be honest. What are you looking like?
I'm about to rob your house, so.
You're looking a bit hit and miss there, mate. You look like you've just woke up on a park bench, to be honest, buddy, but that's just my own...
I've done that in the past, but that's all behind me, so.
Yeah, you have actually done that. That's serious. You've done worse than that as well. Anyway, moving on.
You found a few precarious places, Matt, so let's not go into that.
No, mate, that's why I'm trying to change the topic. Anyway, so now, man, how's things? What was I going to say? We always tend to talk about coffee right at the start. This is probably the 8th time now we've talked about coffee at the start. Right? What's that?
You're boring people with it now.
I'm boring people. I just wanted to say,
You are talking about it a lot on your stories, though. Your stories are full of quotes about coffee and whatnot, so...
Exactly. I've got to shut up about it now. But, I'm 12 days in. I just wanted to put that out there. I'm on fire. So how's things, mate? Anyway, how's life out there? You good? You good to roll?
I am ready to roll, mate. Ready for action. No, it's good. I'm starting in a new gym, so I'm kind of feel... I'm happy now. So it's a good start to the new year. I'll just say that.
It looks good as well. I can't believe the facilities they have, mate, for for an apartment. It's an apartment, kind of. Explain quickly what it is.
I'm working for a company called The Right Fit. So generally they do open up gym facilities inside apartment buildings, which are popping up all over the city. Now this one's a little unique because it's a building that they actually own. So it's just a 4-floor building. Now they have different office spaces in there, but they do have their own personal training facility within. And they're also extending that into group exercise, I believe, at the end of March. So it's all guns blazing, man. They're the future of fitness, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops.
Definitely. And I'm sure they've probably got something similar here. If not, they will have soon. But we should keep that under wraps, actually, because that's an idea for out here in Sydney.
Awesome.
But it's too late now because someone else is going to steal it. Anyways, because Sydney...
You can erase that from the podcast anyway.
Yeah, I'll edit this part out, mate, anyway. I always edit most of your voice out anyways. Have you not noticed it's like 80% me? It's like, what's going on here? I don't get it.
Make yourself sound a little bit smarter. So.
Definitely, mate. No, but Sydney, for example, it's like a mini, I don't know, like the best way to describe it is like New York and LA are like Sydney on steroids, basically. Like, New York and LA are like 50 times the amount of everything Sydney has. But it does have everything, if that makes sense. But I think something like that will be coming in soon because there's so many nice gyms now in the apartment blocks and whatnot. So that needs to happen because
I wouldn't be surprised if that company expanded over there anyway. I believe they're overseas already. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Sweet, man. But that's
so what day is it?
What day is it? Oh, so day here, mate, is Saturday morning now. So it's 7:30 a.m. Is that right?
I was seeing from your story that it was Australia Day, right?
That's right, mate. That's right. It's Australia Day today, actually. So,
can you give us a brief history on Australia Day? Or?
Yeah, I can do, mate. Kind of, but it's quite.
I'm going to put you on the spot with that one. I didn't think you know. So
it's quite brutal. No, it's pretty much when Captain James Cook put his flag down, I believe, in 1788, down in Botany Bay, put his flag down. And that's when basically I think Australia was founded, as far as I know, if I've got that right. But I do know there's some. If that might be a bit off, but I do know that it's pretty grim. Actually, it's quite. Mate, it's terrible. Like that, in a way that they actually celebrate it because it comes down to like a lot. I think a lot of unfortunately, a lot of Aborigines and stuff was slaughtered on that day. It was a brutal war, and yeah, mate. But to be honest, here, mate, it's just another excuse for everyone to get on the
get drunk, right?
That's it, mate. Like there's so many public holidays here. It seems like there's non-stop public holidays. Like even the Queen's birthday here, Drew. Like even in the UK where we're from, they don't even have a day for that.
And if you talk to the majority of Australians, they probably can't stand the Queen either, right?
Exactly. That's it, mate. No, it's a good day though. To be fair, it is a good day here, and it's like peak summer as well. So it's a nice time to have a holiday. I just went for a little dunk in the ocean, then, mate. It's like 20 in the late 20s already. Beautiful. Degrees. Nice and warm over there as well. It was like minus 11 the other day or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it was minus 14 in Celsius, mate. So you can only imagine how that felt.
Yeah, mate. I can only imagine.
You can't leave your hands out of your pockets for more than 2 seconds before it's biting, man. It's horrible. But Actually, it was -9 on the Tuesday, then the day after, and everyone was like, "Oh, super warm today." It was so bad on that Monday, like the weather was so ferocious that it was like the Tuesday was refreshing, and still -9. So
that's madness.
I can only imagine.
Absolutely.
The summertime makes up for the winter year. I think I've discussed this before, but I'm telling you now, like sometimes the way the weather drops, it is painful. Like your face is just stinging with pain. It's horrible. So you need to be bundled up big time.
You'll be bundled up.
Mm-hmm.
Man. So, what's that? That's all right, man. I just rub it in every time. But before we go off too much about talking about the weather and coffee, like we always do at the start of every podcast, I'll crack straight into the first. So obviously, as the podcast audience should now know, we now get people to write in with questions. So fitness, nutrition related questions and whatnot. And it's good because I'm getting some really good questions and stuff that I wouldn't normally think of, because it's kind of tough sometimes, Drew, isn't it, to actually put yourself into other people's boots, right? When it comes to, there's stuff we don't think about, isn't it? Like that people actually want to know. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like specific stuff. Is there any kind of any stuff you can, like, do you get any like questions off clients and stuff? Any common ones which come up, which, you know, because we always seem to cover. We always end up talking about the same sort of things, don't we? You know what I mean? Which is cool, but like, you know, it always comes back to like the most important things, right? Like, you know, eating healthy most of the time, movement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just, from my clients, obviously it's just a similar type of questions like weight loss, what should I eat, different nutrition questions. So there's nothing too valuable I can give you there, but like for me, it's just about us learning from each other. So we may just discuss like what's going on in not politics, but what's going on in the world, what's going on with family, friends, and just give advice to each other that way. So ultimately, I'm always trying to learn because I'm working with quite affluent clients. So anything I can get from them is fantastic. Like, you know. So it isn't always about like fitness when I'm doing an hour session with them. Sometimes it's nice to switch off from that from time to time. And then when they're ready to ask me, they'll ask me and I'll give them a solid answer, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
How yourself?
There's one I get asked a lot, actually. It's like questions which quite, you know, you can answer them, but it's, you know, there's loads of variables. Like, what should I eat for breakfast? That's one I get a lot. And I always tell people, mate, most people, to be honest, just to avoid kind of carbohydrates for breakfast, or just keep the carbohydrates low. And have one which is high in protein, fat, and fiber, and it normally keeps them satiated for longer. And it really changes the game for a lot of people. That does, like just having eggs and avocado, and maybe some leafy greens. Just keeping it simple, you know, squeezing lemon or adding cider vinegar for flavor, salt and pepper. Just keeping it simple and having stuff which is kind of people think is unconventional, because people are used to having like, you know, bread and whatnot for breakfast. So that helps a lot. Just that's, you know, but that's a question I get asked a lot, mate. Like, what should I eat? Like you said.
Discussion I had with my client on Thursday, actually, because he was saying that he normally has, I don't know, he was having like berries, oatmeal, and yogurt for breakfast, and he suddenly made a switch to transition into like having eggs and avocado and things like that. And the focus of the conversation was me just saying, like, how do you feel after both? Because I think there's never a relation to what we eat and how we feel afterwards. And he said that he did feel that with having that higher fat breakfast with a moderate protein, that he had more sustained energy throughout the morning, rather than hitting those carbs in the morning and having that crash. Like, obviously everyone is independent and everyone feels differently with certain foods, but as a rule of thumb, I would certainly go, if I am eating breakfast, to a go-to breakfast such as like eggs, avocado, maybe some fish or steak or something like that. And for me, that works better. For him as well, I just told him, just realize that relationship you have with food and pay more attention to that than the actual food you're eating for now, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's what I was going to come to as well, is getting them to connect with how they feel afterwards. And that's what I get with people who normally have, like, I don't know, how switch having, you know, bread or some form of carbohydrates, even fruit, you know. Some of them throw some berries in with their breakfast, but generally, like, some of them would have like mangoes and stuff like that for breakfast, which, like, for example, a mango is like 80% sugar, right? So I think it's one of the highest. Mangoes have one of the highest concentrations of sugar in. So,
that's a smart move.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Especially, so, like, just having an omelette or having, like you said, meat. Yeah, even meat.
Switching the mango to berries, like, ultimately you're going to add more fiber to your diet, so that's going to make you satiated, right? So you're going to hit your fiber totals for the day. Plus, you know, with mangoes or bananas or something like that, is higher calorie content. So if you can just switch that for some berries, then it's going to help you if you are going into a calorie deficit, right? It's going to make life easier for you. you up. So
that's it. And what I find is with me and with clients actually is what they tend to pick up on is when they stop doing something. So for example, if they're having, like, let's just say they went from having like a sugary breakfast to having a high fat breakfast like we mentioned, then when they stop doing that and they go back to their old habits, that's when they start noticing, oh, my energy's plummeting. I'm starting to get more cravings, I'm finding it harder to control my calories. You know what I mean? All these things start kicking in when they stop doing it. And the same goes for myself as well. Like for me, for example, like I always struggle to build legs. Like, as you know, like with you're the other way around, right? Your legs respond really fast. Like for me, my legs are just slow responders, to say the least. So I do squats every day, even if I'm not lifting weights. I'll do squats every day and the days in between. If I stop doing that, the bodyweight squats, my legs just shrink straight away. Like I lose that fullness straight away. So it's like that's another example,
You're just building those habits again, right? We always talk about that. It's like brushing your teeth every day. If you can start building habits with what you eat certain times of the day and with your exercise, then it's going to make it easier long term,
Definitely, mate. All right, let's dive into that first question then. So Louis at LouisB11 on Instagram. Good question. We both chose this one because you think a lot of our audience can relate to this, and having both of us trained lots of people from a variety of different ages, we can relate to how our clients have managed to combat this question. Anyway, so the question is, how would one modify training and nutrition as they get older to maintain and hopefully gain more muscle mass? So, do you want to dive in first with this one, And?
I can do it. I think it boils down to how you might alter it at our age now. You've just got to be very, very conscious of and aware of how your body responds to certain stimuluses and certain types of food as well. Ultimately, I know we bag on about this a lot, but it's got to be like a constant regimen of weightlifting, right? Which is going to increase like insulin sensitivity, like basal metabolic rate. It's also going to help with increasing bone density and decreasing your fat levels, really. So the reason I say that is because you are more prevalent to certain issues and certain diseases as you get older, particularly like things like osteoporosis, which is a decrease in bone density. So if you are applying strength training correctly right now, before you get older, it's going to make that less prevalent, because after I believe it's when we reach about 30 years of age, our bone mineral density starts to decrease anyway. So if you are starting strength training or training later on in life, it is going to become more difficult to reverse certain ailments,
Yeah, exactly. And let's talk a little bit more about collagen then. So collagen, because that's what Andrew's referring to when he's saying our bone mineral density decreases. And actually studies have shown, some studies show from 18 onwards, but generally from like 21 years old onwards, I think your collagen drops roughly by about 1 to 1.5%. Your collagen production each year drops by that amount. Now, collagen is the main structural protein found within the connective tissue in the body, and it makes up for about 25 to 35% of the proteins in the body. So collagen, just to simplify it, is very, very important. And if you ask me, I'm pretty sure nothing will actually force your body to produce more collagen than lifting weights. And let's just talk a little bit more about bone density, because the body is forced to release calcium into the bones when you put the stress from lifting weights onto the joints, the bones, the muscles. The body is forced to produce more calcium and collagen. So nothing, if you ask me, is going to combat aging more than lifting weights. But, also, like, if we can go a little bit more into the science, the mitochondria as well. So, the collagen is found within the mitochondria, I believe, and the mitochondria are the power plants within the cells which generate energy. To go a little bit deeper into that, ATP, which is known as like the energy currency for life. It's broken down when we eat foods, and it's our main source of energy. As I said, it's the energy currency for life. So, collagen is so important. And I think as we get older, as even past the age of 21, as I said, just bear in mind that our collagen production generally starts reducing by about 1%. So, just to talk, as we always do, about lifting weights and how important that is to build strength and to build your bone density. But yeah, just that was just to go a little bit deeper into collagen. But
Yep.
also hormones, Owen, right? Like you mentioned, I think you mentioned quickly about hormones.
Yep.
Yeah, so obviously our hormone profile changes a bit as we get older, right?
Yeah, are you talking about are we talking about people who are already training, or is this in sedentary
we
people?
can relate to both, mate. I was going to go off on one on this, so yeah, we can relate to both.
Like if you are sedentary now, I believe we drop in terms of muscle mass, between 3 to 8% of muscle mass every decade that you are a sedentary person. So like I said, we've already, Martin just alluded to there, that we are focusing on strength training because of those reasons. You don't want to lose that muscle mass because ultimately you don't want to be immobile as you get older, because you want to have your own independence. You want to have that confidence in yourself. You often see people as we get older, we're starting to rely on other things such as, I know I'm delving deep into the future now in terms of the elderly, but if you do have issues with bone density and osteoporosis and things like that, it's going to ultimately take away your freedom. So you're going to end up using a walker. You're going to rely on other people to do things. So if you can set in stone now certain goals and certain habits that involve strength training, involve moving, and involve good mobility, then it's going to prevent you from having these issues in the future.
Definitely.
I
was just going to say, yeah. So the fundamental thing, as we always talk about, is movement. So movement is so key. So let's just say someone who doesn't even lift weights, right, and they want to manipulate, their fitness and nutrition to help them, I guess the question was to build muscle. So yeah, obviously lifting weights has to come into it there. But let's just talk about general kind of longevity and health and actually keeping yourself, in decent shape. Movement is so important. It's not just the calorie expenditure, but, the people who live the longest tend to move the most just by walking around. So that's very, very important. And it's obviously mobility as well. So I wanted to go a bit deeper into that as well. And I would say just even for the average person, or let's just talk first about someone who's never actually lifted weights. Yoga movements and mobility, and actually, trying to counterbalance the patterns that you have kind of cemented in over the years. Because what you've got to bear in mind is as we get older, we spent our whole life, no matter who you are, you would have developed some bad recruitment patterns along the way. What I mean by that is postural issues. 99% of people that I train, probably 100% actually, I can't recall any who haven't had some sort of minor postural issues. And what I mean by that is rounded shoulders. Like Andrew and I now, I'm looking at him, I can feel myself rounding my shoulders. It's the life we live in nowadays, right? Our shoulders round forward. We don't activate the posterior chain enough. So you need to focus on, I think, mobility, and doing yoga style movements on a regular basis is going to do the world of good, putting everything else aside, either way. And also, taking it a step further, if you can focus on lifting weights, obviously for muscle mass and longevity, we've talked about this so many times, lifting weights is the number one. It's number one on the list. But not everyone likes doing it. Not everyone wants to do it. So I'm trying to relate to more people. But yeah, just to cap this off, the posterior chain, right? So when you're lifting weights, doing movements, like Andrew and I will always take clients through, for the most part, we'll take them through a postural assessment at the start. And most of the people I train, to be honest, I'd say the majority of people I train are probably over 30 anyway. So I train a lot of people in their 40s, train some people in their 50s. And I get them straight away doing postural assessments so I can monitor exactly where their tight muscles are and where the weak muscles are. And straight away, I'll get them doing normally rowing movements to strengthen those back muscles. So the muscles just on the mid-back, like the rhomboids, the mid-lower traps. I always get them to do rowing movements like a seated row, overhead presses. I like to get people up to that level of doing overhead presses and just really focusing on that posterior chain, because that will do you the world of good going forward. So, sorry, I went off on one a bit there, mate.
That's fine. You're always going off on a tangent. I'm used to that, so it's all good. Just when you're older as well, one of the worst things you can do is lose strength. So again, Martin just alluded to that we need to build strength, build muscle mass. If you lose functionality, you lose strength, then you lose independence. Okay, and that's huge as vitally. I'm not sure exactly how old this person is who wrote in the question. So
we're not going to guess a woman's age. We're not going to go down that road. We're not going to guess a woman's age. If it was a guy, maybe, but.
We listened to a study. There was a recent study from, I believe it's Wake Forest University. And it said the study showed that cardio workouts caused older adults to lose more muscle mass than dieting alone. So people who are focusing too much on cardio as they get older, that along with diet promoted more muscle loss. So we don't want that. If we can focus on switching that to diet and strength training, we can maintain that muscle mass as we get older. That's going to work perfectly for us, right? Active and fit individuals, especially males, tend to have like a lesser decrease in testosterone as they get older to sedentary individuals as well. So ultimately, you being fit and healthy as you get older is not only going to be good for your physical health, but also for your mental health as well.
Yeah, well said, mate. And yeah, just to talk a bit more, like you said, about the hormones, as we get older, it sounds like a doomsday here, doesn't it? Like reading off all the bad things you get older, but trust me, you can combat this with some of the tips we're giving so easily. Yeah. And yeah, just going to say the hormone receptors become less sensitive as we get older. Estrogen levels drop in women, and then obviously that leads on to menopause. And then with guys, and also I didn't even know melatonin as well, which is the sleep-induced hormone. Studies have shown that melatonin actually decreases as we get older as well. And melatonin is vital for, like I said, it's the sleep-induced hormone. So helps you get a good quality sleep and regenerates your body. Also regulates all the other hormones as well, or it does play a massive part anyway in serotonin and whatnot. But yeah, for guys, obviously testosterone levels drop. I think when guys get to the age of 50, the testosterone levels on average start dropping by about 1 to 2% each year when a guy gets to 50. But obviously there's so many different variables which come into it. For example, I'd like to think when Andrew and I get to 50, we would have been lifting weights for decades. I'd like to think our test levels would drop slower, but I'm not gonna wish for that. I'm not gonna say that just in case. But yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk about nutrition as well, like the ability to absorb certain nutrients as a metabolism does change with age, right? So I think the issue people have as they get older, they generally see like an increase in fat around the stomach, and then that becomes a bit of a panic. But like as I'm starting to age as well, like I'm in my 30s, I know you might not see that as a ripe old age, but my mobility has started to suffer because of the way I've trained incorrectly as I've grown older, plus playing a lot of sport. So I've had to adjust my calorie intake for that because I'm not moving as well as I used to, right? So it's not the fact that, you are, as you get older, you're probably eating the same foods and you're eating the same amount of calories, but it's probably nothing to do with the actual food you're eating. It's more a factor that you are not moving as much. So when you do increase in age, you may need to factor that in and decrease your calories to suit the lack of movement and lack of mobility because you're not moving as effectively as you used to. Absolutely. If that makes sense.
I'm glad you said that because I'm not, over the hill, so to speak, but I'm 31 years old now, and, my body has taken a little bit of hammering from the competitions I've done and stuff. Only now I'm starting to realize, like I would push through pain a lot, like when I would get niggles in certain areas when I was lifting weights, and I would just ignore it, and that's kind of coming back round already. Also, I think just playing rugby and a few of the bumps I took playing rugby up until about 5-6 years ago, and just age in general, I've noticed now that I literally cannot get away with not doing the stuff I mentioned earlier, like the yoga style mobility movements. Every morning I do at least just a minimum of 5-10 minutes every morning, and then I do about 10 minutes prior to each session. So I'm doing bare minimum of 15 minutes every day. And over the Christmas period, when I stopped doing that, I actually got an injury straight away. So even when you get past 30, people do say, I've had a lot of guys say to me, watch what happens when you get to 30, in terms of muscle mass and stuff. But I think between 25 and 35, I think are solid years. I think when it comes to building muscle mass and overall health, mental, your mental state from life experience, I think in many different ways, I think there's solid years up until about 35, I'm hoping. But and from what I've noticed with other people who've looked after themselves, I know some guys in their 40s and even leading up to 50 who are in incredible shape. Again, it comes down to the basics though as well, like consistency, the person who, as we said last time, the person who's adhering to something like weightlifting once or twice a week, every single week for decades, is obviously going to get a much, much better compound effect with muscle mass and overall health than someone who's doing weights 6 times per week for a month and then stopping for a few weeks and, on the on and off wagon. But yeah, nutrition, Drew. Any other tips on that, mate? Because I was going to come to that next.
Yeah, of course, mate. Just in terms of obviously you mentioned earlier bone mineral density, calcium, and things like that. Like calcium-rich foods that you may want to start adding to your diet when you get older. Just lots of green leafy veg, like tin fish, some seeds, almond seeds. I believe vegans as well. They can add I think it's soy products. I believe I may be wrong on that.
That's right, I think.
Some beans and some tofu as well, which is something that they probably do have in their diet anyway. So that's something they can look into. Plus the seeds will help.
Yep, definitely. I'm glad you went a bit more specific into the foods, because I haven't really thought about much in terms of food specifics. But yeah, with calcium as well, because I have this conversation with people, and you can get more than enough calcium from having sufficient vegetables and some fruit. If you focus on, consuming enough vegetables and plant-based foods, some fruit. Now, I wanted to mention quickly how important fiber is on that note as well. Now, I know this is veering away from calcium a little bit, but what I always promote to my clients, an easy way to get the good types of fiber in is, as Andrew mentioned earlier, berries. You're going to get about 4 grams of the right, really good type of fiber within about 100 grams of berries, and in 100 grams of berries there's like 50 calories as well. So if you're looking to keep your calories down, but just the antioxidants and everything else, and also like spinach and leafy greens, just getting enough fiber in is really, really important for gut health and stuff like that. Actually, it's vital for gut health. And so yeah, just really focus on, I always say to people as well, roughly to hit around about 12 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories you eat. Now, for some people who don't track their calories, like I said, just focus on having maybe berries daily and leafy greens and just plenty of vegetables. I just wanted to clear that up. Can you get enough calcium in, though? You can, right, through fruit and veg. Like, you don't need to have dairy, right? I mean, for the average person.
Not necessarily, mate. Yeah, if you have a very controlled diet like me and you do, and I think people who listen to this podcast working towards that. Ultimately, as you get older, your diet should be focused on containing certain ailments or preventing certain issues we've talked about. You can have less bone density, can lead to osteoporosis, lack of calcium. You may also need to battle against other issues that can come into fruition if you are getting older, such as heart disease. So part of your diet, you might want to focus on like omega-3s, and they're also maybe protective against like arthritis, can help with eyesight issues and cognitive function. So it's just making these adjustments in terms of the amount of calories you eat and focusing on having nutrient-dense, whole natural foods, as we always say.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I guess to summarize with nutrition, I think it's coming back to the basics. I think even as you're aging, I think if you focus on eating plenty of whole foods and just minimizing the amount of processed foods you have. But as you get older, I think studies have shown for most people as well, your insulin sensitivity decreases. So I know it's in a sense it's not splitting hairs, but it's kind of like calorie control is probably the most important thing, I would say, really, if your goal is to build muscle and maintain that muscle as you get older. I think it's really important to obviously hit adequate protein amount, as Andrew and I have mentioned before. Like, you can kind of generalize this question, which I'm doing now, because you can widen it a bit in terms of the answer. But as you get older, you can focus on having, in general, for the average person, even a minimum of about 0.6 to 0.8 minimum grams of protein per pound of body weight. So like for someone who's starting to lift weights, so who's just starting out, especially if you're a bit older as well, I tend to put them on more like about a gram of protein per pound of body weight. So I'll put them on a little bit more because they tend to need a little bit more because they're not as efficient with protein. So those kind of things. But yeah, like I'm just going off on one now, but just to summarize, I think it's the most important thing is just to eat whole foods most of the time, plenty of vegetables, eat some fruits, good quality animal products. Hopefully you're not a vegan if you're listening to this. Good quality animal products, and just being consistent. And for let's just say 70-80% of the time, you're eating whole foods really. So that's just kind of like, it's a wide scope really with this question. So I think that appeals to everyone, including people who are getting older.
Yeah, man, and again with training, like again, there's a big focus on strength training, which is going to help with you being more independent as you get older. Adjust that to your own body. You know that you're going to have these tweaks, little issues as you get older. So adjust your strength training, the amount you do to your body. Focus on moving well, and just listen to your body. Really, is telling you. It gives you telltale signs. Like for you to blast your body when you're getting into your 40s, 50s, it becomes a little bit harder. Like even with my own training, I've recently increased my training volume to 6 days a week. Now I've put it back down to 3 because I know I'm starting to get these niggles and pains. So just have a big focus on listening to what's going on within your own body. You can build a great physique no matter what age you are, doing 2 to 3 sessions a week, providing you have your nutrition in check, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And as far as training goes, this one's for Louis B, right? So I'm just assuming maybe she is a little bit more advanced with her knowledge and she has done a proper strength training phase. But I think that's a massive missing piece, and it was even for me and Andrew a couple of years back. None of us had really done proper focused strength training where we just focused on building strength and lifting heavier weights. Now it's a completely different stimulus to what most people tend to do. Now most people tend to hit around about 8 to 12 or 8 to 15 reps per set when they're lifting weights, and that obviously does have its place, the hypertrophy and strength endurance and whatnot, but actually building maximal strength for your bone density, for your heart, for the calories you burn, everything really. And going forward as you get older as well, as Andrew said, your strength does deteriorate as you get older if you don't really. But I was just going to say, to actually just the question was, as they get older, to maintain and hopefully gain more muscle mass. I cannot stress to you enough how important strength training is. So for about 3 to 6 weeks, if you can focus on lifting heavy weights, and if providing your technique's good and you're well versed with the fundamental lifts such as squat, deadlifts, overhead press, those kind of things with a barbell, if you can focus on doing those movements with a heavier weight than you normally do for anything from like say 1 to 6 reps, going hard and heavy. And the good thing is now Andrew and I have created another free training program, which is going to be released next week for everyone. So Louis B, I think you should do this. It's a 4-week program, and it is exactly what I said there. It is full body. It's 2 to 3 full body training sessions a week, and it is a strength training phase. So I think this, for a free program, I think this is going to change the game for a lot of people, even that 4 weeks. But yeah, just to summarize for me, as you get older, number 1 on the list, Louis B, and for anyone else who's listening, I would say is resistance training. I don't think it's going to be in any particular order, but I think in terms of all the stuff we've talked about, aging, collagen production, building muscle, maintaining muscle, obviously doing resistance training properly is going to be at the top of the list. And then with nutrition, again, it comes back down to the generalized kind of thing. Eat healthy most of the time, be consistent, and then it's always going to come back to sleep, drinking enough water, and all those kind of things. But we did go more into the weeds then on the question. So that's my take anyway. And anything you wanted to say to finish it off, mate?
No, I'm good with that, mate. I think you've summed it up nicely there.
Lovely jubbly. All right, mate. Once again, I'll let you jump into the next one, yeah? So I can just I can just listen to what you're saying and copy you. So another great question. We talked about it. We've skimmed over the supplement topic a few times in other podcasts, but we haven't gone into that much detail. So at Will Hill 1, he wanted to know about supplements, and he actually gave me a list of supplements he was taking, which I'll bring up now so we can kind of talk about that. But what's your experience? Go on, mate.
Don't take them.
There we go.
It's my take. End of question.
That's Drew's answer. Done. Okay, so right then, leave me a rating and review on iTunes, and that's the end of it. Done. Yeah, go on, Drew. What's your experience with supplements, mate? Because we've got our own story.
My experience with supplements is that I used to take them far too often. I probably spent the majority of my income on it when I was younger. So when I was working different jobs, rather than saving to I don't know, just to invest or go traveling or something like that, I would look for the latest supplement brand from a magazine. I think the biggest one I used to buy was, I'm not sure if you remember, Maxi Muscle Cyclone. Do you remember that one?
Yep, I do.
I used to buy, I don't know, I was probably earning terrible money at the time in between like college and school. So I think I was earning maybe £250 a week. And I was spending Cyclone. I'd probably buy 3, get the fourth one 3, and that probably cost me about £150.
Wow.
And I was far better investing that in a decent diet and into some nutrition, some whole natural foods, rather than drinking that substance, which I find crazy now these days.
If only we'd have known, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The amount of money I used to spend on supplements, and I'd get sucked in by like magazines and TV shows and things like that, thinking that it was a be-all and end-all to get my protein shake in within a 30-minute anabolic window post-session. And there's a huge regret of mine now. Like, if anything, I've getting rid of most of the sweeteners in my diet and things like that, and eliminating like pre-workouts and amino acids has not only done paid dividends for my body, but I think my mind as well, mate, because I feel that when I was taking those supplements and I was getting a high and then a low, then a high and then a low, that wasn't doing anything for my psychoactive.
Exactly.
That's the wrong word. My psychologist.
Exactly, mate. No, and I can relate, man, because I was exactly the same in my teenage years. I stumbled upon Carter Sports Nutrition, a nutrition shop near where I used to live, and went straight in there when I started lifting weights when I was like 15, 16, and I was just literally bought everything, all the stuff he recommended. And now looking back, it just kind of tucked me up a little bit because, 95% of it probably wasn't necessary. So I started off taking like whey protein, and then what else did he give me? He gave me a pre-workout as well. What else was it? If only he'd give me creatine. I wish he'd give me creatine. What's that?
You would have, if you were anything like me, you would have been taking a pre-workout. You would have looked to take during your workout.
Yeah,
for some reason.
Yeah.
You would have taken BCAAs or an intra-workout, which is the new phrase using now. You would have taken post-workout, probably like a protein shake with some sort of dextrose, like some sort of fast-acting sugar. Yeah. And you probably would have had 1 or 2 more shakes throughout the day because you felt you weren't getting enough protein in, although you were probably eating about 300 grams of protein from chicken breast, bland chicken breast.
That's it. You're already overdosing and peeing out the majority of protein intake.
And the funny thing is, like, I was thinking about this the other day, that I'm not sure I used to eat super bland foods. I felt like the blander the better in terms of my diet, so I would eat like a chicken breast with some uncooked broccoli with some brown rice, no salt, no seasoning, nothing like that. And I would go from having the blandest food to then having one of the most processed foods I could have, which was the protein shake. So I didn't even put 2 and 2 together at the time. That was like from one extreme to the other.
It's funny because you see the word protein in it, a protein shake, protein bar, and people assume, protein is healthy. But it's actually quite the opposite.
Yeah, my friend Andre used to say, if that chocolate bar there said protein on it, you would eat it. And he was right.
Yeah.
It was just so silly. Yeah, exactly, man. It's crazy. So, and even then, you would probably have like a protein bar as well, sometimes a few times a week. But like, look back, the way it made your gut feel and like your digestion was awful.
Absolutely. There's only a handful of protein products, whey protein products, or any protein products that I've found which are actually, generally healthy, and they've only got a few ingredients in them. But if you look at a tub, as we've mentioned before, the average tub of protein, you'll see the massive list of chemicals and artificial ingredients in there. And there literally is not much more processed. There's not much things or foods or anything out there more processed than a protein shake. So
it's crazy. It's supposed to deemed a health shake, right? It's healthy for you, and that's again another reason how you get sucked into it as well.
That's it.
And I used to argue with people to say this is like my mother was even saying, like, all these substances you're taking can't be good for you. I was like, no, they're like nutritional shakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at the time I was blinded by them, and I really look back, and that is a huge regret of mine that I was just bought into that rather than just looking after my diet and controlling calories and things like that. And I could have got my body in a better shape by not having them back then than I am now, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. Same here. We couldn't have been further from the truth, really. And I started taking USN, like USN's whey protein.
Were you sponsored by them? Or you were sponsored by
this is way, yeah. So to be fair, when I first started, this is like when I was like 15, 16, I literally was just taking protein and I think maybe a pre-workout. But I was having like 3 of them a day. I was having like 3 protein shakes a day. And I was eating, I must have been having like 5 times the amount of protein I needed. No wonder I've got gut issues, but exactly, mate. But then later,
did you ever have the high calorie shake? I think it was like my friend used to have Mammoth shake.
Yeah, I was going to come to that then. Yeah, the mass gainer. The mass gainer. Mate, I used to have one. It used to be like 1,300 calories. Mate, it used to be like 1,300 calories in a shake, right? 1,300.
Thick substance.
That's it, mate.
I used to one of them before heading to the gym, like back in the day. So yeah,
so you press the blender and it's just like it doesn't even move, does it? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I used to even add stuff to it. I used to add like bananas and peanut butter. So I probably used to have like 2,000 calories in a shake at one point. And no wonder my farts used to smell so chronic.
Yeah, disgusting. I don't find I have the only time that happens now is if I do occasionally have something like that, or like that's changed rapidly, like my digestion, things like that, and wind and things like that, from not having these types of shakes every day. So that's a big sign for me that if my gut is firing correctly and efficiently, then I shouldn't have that type of stuff in my diet. So
100%. And I think, like, you know, bodybuilders, so many of them out there still have like way too much protein day in, day out, and like I'm more aware of it now, so I have so much less now. But even now, I don't know about you, Anne, but I struggle to keep it down because I know I only need the bare minimum. So as we mentioned earlier, like for someone who's just starting out lifting weights, generally they're going to need, I'm going to put them on a bit more protein just to make sure they're getting an adequate amount, because the body doesn't synthesize it as well. But with Andrew and I have been lifting weights for X amount of time, you know, we don't need as much. So I struggle to actually keep it down to the minimum. So I'm still having a little bit too much, but I'm not having a dangerous amount. Like I used to have a dangerous amount. And studies have shown that, you know, having too much protein can increase the risk of certain types of cancer by like 400%. You know, having I think for the people listening haven't got this issue, but like most of the bodybuilders out there are having dangerous amounts. But yeah, you step
into Gold's Gym in LA and you smell the farts in there, and then you tell me that those guys are on protein shakes.
Oh,
right?
Mate, pungent farts, man. You can from a mile away as well, man.
It's like an eggy smell.
Mate, those farts linger with intent, mate. I'm telling you.
Yeah, if you smell them in the gym, you know some guy is probably doing too much protein or too many supplements. So
literally,
the reality is the majority of them aren't approved anyway by quality standards. So like most aren't tested, most don't have the amounts of protein in or HMB or whatever else, any other supplements they have in them.
100%.
A lot of them have biased research, so like they are using their own studies of their own scientists to prove that they have muscle effects or muscle building ability when you take the shake.
Oh, so that's a good point. So they're very clever. They're very clever about that. So the marketing, they'll say, oh, studies have shown, and by the way, all the studies are short term. They're like 6 weeks max. And they'll say, this particular, let's just say, this type of this whey protein improved certain markers which contribute to building. But did they build more muscle? The answer is probably no. Like they'll just use fancy words and beat around the bush to make it. And even if they did, it's short term. And it's like like out of all the things you're doing to build muscle and actually, you know, become healthy and whatever it is and maintain muscle, it's literally within the 1 to 5%. Supplements come into the 1 to 5% of your end product, isn't it? True.
It's the least. It's probably the least important factor like you can have when it comes to like your overall nutrition.
Definitely, and the reason they're called supplements is because you're supposed to supplement a good diet, right, or a good lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
That's exactly it. But yeah.
Go on, sorry.
No, go on, mate. Go on.
I was just saying that, like, when I have discussions with people, if I'm talking about training and stuff like that, like, one of the first questions they might ask me is, like, what supplements do you take?
100%.
I'd be like, years ago, I would have said, I take this, that, this. Now, I'm like, I don't take any supplements. And they're looking at me as if I got two heads, like, as if you're bullshitting me. You know, you must be taking supplements. No. I generally don't take any supplements anymore.
That's it.
Unless I actually need and I'm lacking things in my diet. And again, a supplementation is for supplementing. It shouldn't be the most part of your diet as it used to be for me, like, or the highest part of your diet.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like, people are just kind of confused in a way, because you've got all these models on Instagram promoting, you know, sat next to a pool on holiday, drinking their amino acids, and it's just like, I just go.
Has that changed a little bit for you now, though? Because I don't see as many people drinking like window. It's like a window washer, right? Or window cleaner from a website. That's what it reminds you of, right?
Yeah, some green liquid.
I don't feel that is as prevalent anymore in gyms. I'm not sure how it is in Australia, but like, I definitely see that less and less now. So I believe the tide is turning a little bit when it comes to supplements. So people are getting a bit more savvy to it, knowing that you can get those type of amino acids from your foods and things like that. Unless, I guess, like if I was maybe a vegan, might want to supplement with leucine or something like that, amino acids, because they're not getting an efficient amount of meat in the diet, obviously. But other than that, like, I don't know why the majority of us are taking it.
Exactly, it's pointless. And like even in my heyday, for example, when I was sponsored by Cymex, so I was actually sponsored by one of these companies, folks, right? So I was I fell into that obviously into that mindset of thinking, oh, you know, it's going to really help me and get me really good results. And I think it's like, you know, it's like an ego thing as well. When I look back, it's like you're doing it because you can say you're sponsored kind of thing. Like you still get lots of models out there doing that, which, you know, each to their own. But, you know, obviously I started to learn and realize that actually it wasn't doing anything for me. And in fact, I would say most supplements are going to do you more harm than good. You know, for example, like in my heyday, I was taking a pre-workout before training. Let's just talk real quick about our experience with pre-workout. So, you know, I was taking that before training, and they put so many different types of stimulants, color and dye, artificial stuff in there. And obviously the main stimulant is going to be caffeine anyway. So that's the most beneficial thing in there. So you're better off just having a coffee, hands down. And at least you get the benefits of, you know, the polyphenols and the antioxidants and the gut health and stuff like that from coffee, as you know, and boom, like you're good to go, really. But the pre-workout, they put so many stimulants in there, they actually get you hooked, you know, because you get hooked on the feeling, the mental feeling, right? The rush you get. Remember Hemorrhage End?
Oh man, that was crazy stuff. Like that was interesting, right?
Andrew and I, what were we doing on a night out? Yeah,
exactly. Night, as wired and get chatty and talking to women and things like that. Do you know what I mean? It would have that type of effect on you. So 100%. So that tells you exactly what that substance is you're taking before training, right?
I know. We were taking it on a Sunday before going out.
I think a lot of the time it makes you feel as if you're having a better session, but like I've learned now that even not taking coffee, I feel I'm still lifting the same amount of weight. I'm still pushing myself as hard. It's just that different feeling, right? And you're going to make a transition from a stimulant-based product to, hey, just normal, tranquil, but you're not having a worse session than you would be if you were on a pre-workout. So
absolutely, mate. And studies are showing now that placebo effect is a lot more powerful than what they think, right? So the mind is so powerful. Like I know I always talk about, but yeah, I've cut coffee outright for almost 2 weeks now, and I feel like no different. I'm doing heavy strength training, and yes, I could have done with some the other day. But like it's just in a sense, it kind of is just blocking off the signals. When you're tired and you run down and you're in a bit of a stressed state, that's the last thing you need is a stimulant, really. So, you know, where I was going to go with that is, you know, it just made me realize how powerful placebo is. But this guy, for example, he's taking like he's taking whey protein, right? So let's just go through it real quickly. Whey protein, go on.
Like if he is taking whey protein, I'm not saying it's terribly bad, but like it depends on the rest of his diet. Like, is he giving you an inclination of everything else he's eating, like his macros or anything like that? Because again, if you aren't, like I know you've been struggling lately yourself to get in adequate amounts of calories and maybe sometimes adequate amounts of protein, so then that may be an option where he can add a whey protein into his diet to supplement not getting enough of a certain macronutrient.
Absolutely.
But if he's eating adequate amounts of protein anyway, he doesn't need to take that. Like
no, exactly. And I do have protein every day pretty much, but if I'm honest now, I do need it. Some days I do need it, but a lot of the time I don't need it. It's just become habit now because I mix my berries in with it. It's a good quality protein. It's ATP Science as well. So I don't know where this guy lives. If he lives in Australia though, ATP Science, really good product. They've got like 5 ingredients in there. It's sweetened naturally by stevia. So, you know, I'm not even affiliated with them, but this is a really good product. And the thing is, with most whey proteins, as we said, ideally, if you can get another good one is 180 Nutrition as well. They do a grass-fed whey protein. The thing is, with most whey proteins, it's just they're just not ideal really in terms of the ingredients they put in there. So, but yeah, when it comes down to whether or not you actually need any whey protein whatsoever, it's based on your total protein intake. So, so for this guy. Like we said earlier, I don't know if you track, but you know, really, you only need to have about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. So if you can work out how much you weigh in pounds, the chances are you're probably getting an adequate amount. But obviously, I don't really know what you're eating. But you have said that you eat relatively healthy, so it's good. It's handy if you're not getting enough protein in. Other than that, you don't need it after training. And Andrew mentioned the 30-minute anabolic window, right? Which is complete bullshit. We've been fed by the supplement industry.
Fed into that as well. You know,
exactly. And we bought into.
But again, that's the advertising industry in supplement industry. Hey, you need protein. You need this. You need that.
Definitely.
And we were young and naive, and we weren't educated at that point, and we would buy into that, and we'd buy it. We were like, oh, I gotta get this in. I remember times where I was stressed out if I didn't get. Like I may be with someone, like a family member, and I'm like, I've got to eat, I've got to do this, I've got to get it in within 30 minutes, otherwise I'm going to lose all my muscle.
100%.
That's the effect it has on you. that's not good for you mentally. Like, I'm sorry.
100%.
So if that's feeling right now, cut that protein shake out post training and just don't worry about it and eat a couple of hours after. It's not going to affect you, I promise.
I say exactly, and we used to have. We had that bodybuilding diet, didn't we? We were both following that guy, whatever his name was. And we used to add in there a bit of Vitago, didn't we? Post training with whey protein. So that's another thing. Like, there's a little bit of science comes out, and the bodybuilding world just takes it and runs with it, right? And just multiplies it and just blows out of proportion. So there is some studies to show. It's splitting hairs. It's splitting hairs. There's some studies to show that having sugar or carbs after training can be beneficial, right? But it's splitting hairs.
Yeah, maybe for some people who may train 2 or 3 times a day, but that's generally like an athlete who may either they might need more calories, or they may need to put some of that sugar in post training. Maybe we don't really know, but it's not that important. I'm sorry. So
exactly.
Does he say what type of protein he's using, like the brand?
Yeah, he hasn't actually said on there, but let's just cap that one off. So generally, whey protein can come in handy if you're not hitting enough adequate protein. But when it comes to having it after training, it's not necessary, really. So BCAAs, Drew, that's the next one he's taking. I think they're actually, for the most part, a load of bullshit. I would recommend you stop taking them, Will, to be honest. And for anyone else who's listening, what's your thoughts, mate?
Same. Stop taking them. It's a waste of money.
Waste of money. Save your cash, mate, and buy one of my training programs.
And your supplements as well.
And my supplements, nah. But BCAAs, the only time I do take it, and I think it's probably a psychological thing, but when I'm leading up to shows, and I'm about 3-4 weeks out from a show, and my body fat's down to like 3 or 4%, then I'll start taking it. Because bear in mind, as we mentioned before, the body will use muscle, will break down muscle at a very, very last resort. It's not going to use muscle as energy. So the only reason that they promote this is because you're going to break down muscle and potentially lose some muscle tissue when you're training. Not going to happen. 110%.
Yeah, I think as well, during that time, you're pretty hungry, right? So I think just having a sip on that, which is 0 calories, is just going to give you an extra little boost to get you through your day, right?
Definitely. And you can get most BCAAs in through food. For having good quality animal products, have some red meat, eating chicken thighs, for example, even fish. So, and I believe eggs as well. So any kind of good quality animal sources, you're going to get more than enough BCAAs generally within that. What about glutamine? Because I think there's still some studies to show that it can help. But again, we're splitting hairs, aren't we? Like, it's not going to benefit most people, like anyone really, like 99% of people, unless you're an elite athlete, right? And even then, it's
I've never really utilized this, so I can't comment on that. But again,
Yep.
I think again, it's just one of those products that supplement companies are trying to sell you.
Definitely
sell you on advancements and what it does. But again, I there's a few things I would use, like which we can delve into in a bit. But glutamine for me.
What about creatine? He takes creatine. So what's your experience with that?
That's good. Yeah, I would. That's one of the only supplements that I would recommend. Like, especially if you're looking to build strength for strength benefits, like muscle fullness and for generating power, I guess. But again, don't get roped into buying a huge amount and then like loading up on it. There's like a loading phase, as they promote in magazines, or probably on the back of the pack, they say you need to load up on this for X amount of, I think probably 2 weeks or a month, right? Generally, you only need like 5 milligrams daily.
5 grams,
Should be 5 grams, sorry, man.
Yeah.
And for vegans, probably like a slightly higher dose. Vegans or vegetarians will probably go like about 7 grams a day then.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's probably one of the ones I would say, if you really want to supplement, creatine monohydrate, which is the cheapest version, I believe. That's the one you want to go for. So I know you've been using that lately, or you've been using it a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I've been using Crea Pure, and that's the other thing. There's a lot of crap creatine products out there. So bear in mind, folks, counterfeit supplements are actually rife. So like I should have written down this study, but there's been some studies to show, and it blew my mind. Like, they've done studies on something like 15 to 20 different protein products, and they found like something like 75% of them only had over half the amount of what they stated, if that makes sense. So most of them had literally a fraction of what they said in terms of the amount of protein in there, and that's just one of the many products. But it's the same for creatine. I've heard that a lot of creatine here in Australia, like, it comes from like bins in China. It's honestly like a lot of the ingredients.
Wasn't it like some sort of metals in like some of the vegan type? Wasn't it Vega and stuff like that? They had a high amount of metals, or I don't know, something like that. It may be coming from that product study that you delved in. I don't know. There was other sorts of substances in a lot of them, and some of them are really popular brands. So like,
that's it. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Then they were.
I would, if we're giving advice to you now, when you're listening in, asking the question, like, is there any background information you can do on the product? Like, don't just go from what you read in the magazine or your favorite Instagram model or bodybuilders using it. Can you delve into it a little bit deeper, see if there's been lab analysis done on it, like see if it is a good quality product before you actually buy it? Because as I said earlier, I was roped in to buy in certain products like Maxi Muscle and spending the majority of my pay on it as a youngster. So if that's what you're doing now without doing any background checks on it and finding out more about the product, then you're making a huge mistake, and just start doing that from now on.
Definitely.
Read into it a bit more, see what the benefits are, and see if that's something you're lacking in your own diet.
100%.
Because if you're not in your diet, then you probably don't need to supplement with it.
That's it. But with creatine, even for someone who eats meat, it's quite hard. Like, you'd have to eat like red meat most days to get it in. So I would say for most people listening, I've said this before. I think for women, it's even more important. I can't remember why. There's some studies that show why, but I find I get really good results with most people. I notice they do get a difference. They do, like, let's just say, for example, like with creatine, let's just explain what it does, right? So let's just imagine you're doing a bench press, right, and you have about out of 10 bars of energy, you have like 6 bars, right? That's what you have. Creatine might give you 7 or 8 bars at a push. It's a bit of a weird analogy, but it might give you a little boost. For most people, it does give a boost in strength. I notice a considerable difference in strength. Also, recovery, it helps a lot with, and immune system. So it is a very important nutrient. So also, though, he cycles it as well, which is what that's a smart thing to do. I think generally every 3 or 4 weeks, cycle it. But yeah, around about 3 to 5 grams a day, I would say, for most people is the sweet spot. You don't need to load on it. It will, like Andrew said, it will say that on the tub. But generally, just having that amount each day, around about 5 grams for about 3-4 weeks at a time, is going to be suffice. Also, he takes vitamin C, vitamin D. Do you take any vitamins, Anne, nowadays?
Actually, you reminded me the other day to take vitamin D, because I haven't been taking that, mate, and I was advised to do that by your former guest, Sal, because I think I was a little deficient in it, especially during the New York winter.
Yep.
So, yeah, again, you can probably get it checked with a doctor anyway to see if you are deficient. Ultimately, you want, if again, like, is he from Australia, or?
Do you know what, mate? I haven't actually looked into that, but.
Right. So if he's having a lack, like for me, like if I'm right now, I'm not getting as much sun. It's a little darker and gloomier here during winter. So, and I'm spending a lot of my time indoors because I'm training people throughout the day. And the gym I'm at now is not as open as my previous gym. So there's less opportunity to go outside, I guess. So for me, I'm getting a lack of sunshine. So it can compromise the immune system a little bit. But I think it's also linked to if you lack vitamin D, that you can become depressed through it. So it's definitely an important supplement to take. If you are feeling low, that could be a deficiency in vitamin D. So who knows?
Absolutely, yeah, because vitamin D, I believe.
Even if you are getting the sun like you are, you can still become deficient, and I'm sure if you're not going outdoors enough. So
exactly, yeah. But yeah, I think you're right there. Actually, vitamin D does stimulate the hypothalamus, which produces like serotonin and stuff. So it is very important for your mind. Also, vitamin D is actually the only vitamin which is, I believe, is classed as a hormone. So it actually produces certain hormones such as testosterone. So vitamin D is actually very important for muscle growth. So yeah, the bottom line is, pretty much all of your vitamin D is going to come from daylight and sunshine. Like when it comes to food and what you're putting in your body, that's splitting hairs. So
it's an easy win, right? It's an easy win for you guys, like living in Australia, not just to get outdoors. Like that's a tick there, just to get outdoors and walk around and get some steps in and just enjoy your time outside. And then guess that's a stress reliever as well.
100%.
Getting your vitamin D, you're going to start feeling a bit better. You know how it is when you're sitting outside or away.
Definitely.
You're automatically in a good mood generally, So
exactly, and that's going back to what we're saying. It does have an effect on the hormones and stuff, a massive effect. Yeah. But yeah, so if you get enough sunshine and stuff, and you live in a warm country, generally you're going to get enough vitamin D. What was I going to say then? But yeah, so generally, if you're living in somewhere like the UK, or you have to go for the brutal New York winters like Andrew, then that's when you want to take it really. So like in the winter here, even the winter here in Australia, when we don't get as much, I'll probably take a little bit, but generally we still get enough. So, but it is the number one. I think it's one of the leading deficiencies in the world now, vitamin D. So it is worth looking into that, and take the liquid form. 1,000 to 2,000 IUs a day generally I was taking when I was living back in the UK. So don't quote me on that, but vitamin D, I would say if you're not getting enough through sun, definitely take that. Also, with multivitamins, we better finish this off pretty fast now because I think it's coming up to the hour mark now. But with multivitamins, most of them are an absolute load of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Like I think you know if you are going to take it, you got to get a high quality multivitamin. But I never really recommend it for anyone. Maybe if your diet isn't in check and is very processed, and you're lacking variety and micronutrients, so you'd have to delve into his diet a little bit more with that. But
definitely,
like really, again, you're splitting hairs, I guess, taking a multivitamin. In my
That's it. I
used to take before as well. I used to take that, a multivitamin or a Barocca every day, thinking it was doing something for me, and really, nah.
It's not. We get more than enough for food. Even people with a relatively healthy diet, generally, will get the body's very clever. I believe it produces some naturally anyway. Don't quote me on that. But there's certain hormones and vitamins are produced in the gut. The body produces a lot of vitamins and stuff naturally, I believe. Don't quote me on that again. I don't want to go too much into that. But the minerals and stuff like that, the body does produce a lot naturally. So don't overthink that, right? And the bottom line is his goal, right, is to stay lean and muscular, right? That's his goal. It's aesthetics, right? Like and as he said on the message, like 90% of people have the same goal, right? So and he takes ZMAs as well, which I used to take. So in my heyday, I took pre-workout, I took an intra-workout, I took BCAAs, I took what else did I take? I took glutamine. I took that separately. I took ZMAs. I took literally everything. I was taking it. So ZMAs. So I would say.
How was your body? How was your talking about? He's wishing to be more aesthetic, or he's obviously looking to stay in shape. How is your body differed now that you are not taking as many supplements as opposed to taking all of them?
Oh, night and day. So like obviously that plays a massive part into my my success with my physique and stuff like that and whatnot. When I cut out supplements, so. The second I cut them out and eliminated them altogether, I literally cut them all out at one point, and then I just reintroduced creatine. And what else did I start taking? And then I just started taking, since I've got here, like good quality whey proteins because I can't get enough in. And that's literally it. I do take some nootropics, which I'm a big fan of, but again, I'm not going to go into that because it's kind of splitting hairs. But just to answer his question, right, what I would do is I would cut all of them out, maybe keep some vitamin D handy.
You introduce them, right?
Definitely.
That's an option.
Definitely, yeah. I think, I would say though, like generally for most people, I think if you're not getting enough protein in, whey protein can come in handy. Creatine, continue to cycle that, but forget about all the pebbles, right? Because that's what they are, and focus on the big rocks, right? As we always say, and it's just going back to what we said. If your goal is aesthetics, right? Are you lifting weights properly? You know, how's your training programming? Are you doing that properly? He did say he might buy one of my programs, which would be a good thing for him. Okay. Without trying to plug it, if your training programming's on point, then you're going to get good results. And eating, he says he eats healthy. Obviously, it'd be good to delve deeper into what he's eating, and I wouldn't mind actually helping him on that. But
it could be less focus on supplements, more focus on calorie intake and micronutrient intake. I think that's those can be spot on there.
Definitely, I think that pretty much sums it up. Then, do you think?
Yeah, definitely, mate. And I think just touching on supplements, if there's any vegans listening, probably supplement on vitamin B12 because of his issues with you can have issues with anemia and nervous system damage, and also the amino acid if you're going to take that leucine, which you're lacking from your diet as well. So
100%. And yeah, B12 is the number one for vegans, and there could be one or two. Creatine, yeah, definitely. But yeah, as far as health goes and actually survival, B12 is number one for any vegans. And there are other nutrients and stuff they're finding, which I won't go too much into, which vegans tend to be deficient on after a few years. So although there's a big kind of camp now with people eating plant-based, based on my experience and some of the specialists I listen to and look up to, a lot of these deficiencies can kick in after time. It can take years for these deficiencies to kick in. So if you are a vegan, just make sure you get your blood tested regular, and just keep an eye on it, really. Some people do thrive on a vegan diet, but not many people based on my experience. So yeah, just in one or two sentences, just to answer the question on supplements, the only ones, I think, Andrew, do you take any protein? Any whey protein? Or? No.
Well, I've just lowered my protein intake as well, so there's no need for me to take it anymore. Occasionally, maybe to put in a yogurt or something like that, but I haven't got any left in the cupboard, so I haven't bothered for a few months now.
Sound. So yeah, I'll cycle creatine and I'll take protein. I take the No Way ATP Science protein at the moment. And I've also tried the Primal Kitchen protein as well. Like I said, I'm not affiliated with any of these brands. That's why I mention them all in one podcast. But I'm just being honest with the ones I'm taking. So yeah, that's it really for me. That's all I take supplements-wise. I eat healthy 80% of the time. Healthy whole foods 80% of the time. I eat shitty foods probably once a week. I do I've been having more like kind of healthy kind of treats now, more on a daily basis, to try and get my calories in. But I'm probably using it as an excuse just to eat a bit more sugar. And yeah, for the most part, lifting weights most days properly, and that's really it in a nutshell, Will. So what would you say, mate, to summarise that?
Just focus on home natural foods that have variety, Will, and just save your money, mate. Just if you are worried about like vitamin D deficiency, go to your doctor, get yourself checked out. Other than that, I think just keep going with the creatine. Seems like you're in good nick anyway, so if you have any nutritional questions, just fire them over.
Definitely. And if anyone, I know a lot of people listening to this have office jobs and stuff. If you can just get outside, if you I don't know if you don't do this already, if you can just get outside in the morning, because bear in mind our circadian rhythm is so important, and getting that little hit of vitamin D in the morning, even if it's not sunny, just any form of daylight is going to give you a little spike of vitamin D. So in the morning, if you have a sedentary job, if you just get out there for like 20 minutes, go for a light walk, get some daylight, that's going to do you the world of good. The compound effect on that with vitamin D and movement and circadian rhythm, just something simple like that really helps. So,
and it'll increase your productivity levels as well, no doubt.
Definitely. So with that, if you could, I was going to say, because we're slowly building up our Optimize Your Body tribe, very slowly. We're trying to get up to about 50 members on Facebook, and then we're going to start sharing and answering questions on in the Facebook community. So go over to Facebook and request to join our Optimize Your Body Facebook tribe, and also, we have an Optimize Your Body page as well on Facebook. So go and like and join our group. Thanks again, Drew. Nice one for jumping in again, mate.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.